actually one of the vice president of operations of this Operation Enduring Warrior that I was telling you about. And he was telling me about the Diaz brothers. And he is the SWAT commander for Lodi, California. And he was telling me, man, that the Diaz brothers, they get in trouble all the time, man. They get arrested, I mean, almost monthly, man. so yeah, I guess it's a common thing.
Yeah, it can be.
if somebody knows, Jeff knows, and he'll tell us more about it.
That's for sure.
That's Marketer Brothers.
Marketer Brothers?
Yeah.
Can I just click on
yeah.
I think we're live, no?
Yeah, we're live.
Just gonna share.
Brothers, they get in trouble all the time.
Start sharing,
they get arrested, I mean, almost monthly. So yeah, I guess it's a common thing.
Yeah, it can be.
Oh, there it is. If somebody knows, Jeff knows, and he'll tell us more about it. All right, everybody. Hello. This is Carlos and Ricardo from Marketer Brothers. We have a very special guest today, and we're so very excited. I've known Jeff for how many years now?
Probably about 5, I'd say.
At least
4 or 5 years.
No, even longer than that. I've been here 7 years.
So it was 2014, 23rd. It was like 2014, so it's been about 5 years. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, I've known Jeff. He's a Denver entrepreneur and probably one of the guys that has the most hustle I know. And I mean, your story is awesome, and you've done, you know, in my opinion, something that a lot of people are very afraid to do, which is you've basically built a business from zero.
Yep.
To what now is a group of companies that you have really locally created a well-known name, in my opinion, and now you're diversifying in other cities as well and things like that. So first of all, welcome to Marketer Brothers, man.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you having you
here.
Thank you
for having me here.
Welcome, man.
Just so that people know that are maybe watching for the first time, you know, our goal with this channel and with Marketer Brothers in general is to add value to the lives and to the businesses of entrepreneurs out there that might be watching us from anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And this is something that we started because, you know, my dad was a serial entrepreneur like you, like me, like Ricardo. And he started from very humble beginnings. And when he passed away, it kind of instilled a fire in us to start sharing what we've learned and what we know, and have people like yourself that have hands-on experience and that have struggled and that have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. But, you know, those stories, at least to me, add huge value to anyone that is getting started or that is in his journey to be successful in business. So, man, welcome to the channel.
Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Please tell us a little bit more about yourself. Tell us about, you know, where you're from. And kind of your journey. As I always ask people, how were you as a kid? You know, I think this is
terrible.
Good.
I was terrible. That's what I was telling you. I was looking across the street and I saw Delgado's boxing here, and that's actually where I started to box. Kept me out of a lot of trouble when I was younger. But I grew up just 5 minutes from here.
Okay.
So just down off of 80th and Federal in Denver. And, you know, now looking back, it's funny, we were talking about it. I was talking to a friend the other day. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and it started very young. My mom, I believe, was very entrepreneurial minded too. But when I was a young boy, she became very sick and ill with a brain tumor, and it changed everything for her. So it gave me a lot of motivation to pursue my dreams at all costs. And I had just always been, growing up when I was young, I was very infatuated with other entrepreneurs and business owners, not athletes as much. So, you know, I was fascinated by the story of Philip Knight from Nike. And I always found myself just driving by businesses being like, I wonder who does that. And just down here on 80th and Federal, where that liquor store is now, there used to be a baseball card shop. And I used to go in there and I used to harass this guy all the time saying, let me sell cards for you at school. Let me sell cards for you at school. And he finally gave in one day and I crushed it. And that was like really my first experience with sales, and I loved it. I was in the 5th grade. So yeah, I've just always been fascinated by business. You know, I love business, and I love the opportunity to be able to take something from nothing and create it, and, you know, just pursue your passions. Cause I grew up more on the poor end. And so it's like, if you grow up like that, you don't got nothing to lose.
Yes.
You know, because we know what that side of the life is, but you don't want something more.
So how did people look at you when you were a kid and you were, because I remember as a little hustler, you know, they're like, teachers will frown upon on it.
Yeah.
You know, adults will be like, man, control your kid.
Yeah.
How would people look at you? What do you think the perception is?
You know, well, I didn't, you know, I was in trouble a lot in school. But now, like, me and you've talked about this, being an entrepreneur, the school system, in my opinion, is very like cookie cutter. They want you to follow these directions, and I just wasn't interested in it unless it had something to do with business, ironically. So, you know, the teachers were constantly calling my parents saying that, you know, I wasn't paying attention in class. They thought I was smart, but they didn't know because I wouldn't apply myself only to certain things. But me and some other kid, you know, we used to go door to door, and we would shovel walks in the wintertime for $5. We would do lawn care. I remember one time we wanted some new cleats for baseball season, so we actually went and bought like all these like wholesale cookies, and we put them in baskets, and we took them door to door, saying we were selling for a fundraiser.
Nice.
And we sold out everything. We got our cleats.
Hey, where's the kids these days that shovel snow for $5? I need some of those.
I know, we have this big corner unit house too, and I'm like, oh my God, where are these kids at? They're inside playing video games.
I'm like, I need some kids to come and shovel the snow.
Dude, not only that.
I would even pay 25.
Yeah, for real.
Dude, not only that, I actually read somewhere that now it's so bad now that literally, you know, summer jobs that were usually reserved for kids, you know, like lifeguarding and like, you know, working at little theme parks and stuff like that. Now, even Disney has to actually bring kids from overseas, you know, from Europe and everything and Latin America, because they don't want to work. Like the kids literally they don't want summer jobs. You know, they don't want to earn any money for a car. I mean, I remember when I was in high school here, man. I mean, everybody was trying to apply for a lifeguard job or some whatever part-time job they could so that they can make some money. You know, I don't know what happened, but
yeah,
you know, we all grew up in that generation.
Yeah. I worked at Waterworld, the water park just up the street here. They hire when you're 14, and you got to be like a groundskeeper, so like a janitor type, thing, $250 an hour, and I thought it was awesome.
I was going to ask you, how many jobs did you have?
A ton. So, you know, I started working when I was 14, working at Waterworld, and that's something I did every summer. And then when I turned 16 years old, I started working at King Soopers. And then when I left from there, I worked at Home Depot until I was 18, and that was it. So that was my last job, and I decided to pursue my dreams full time from that point. So,
but by then, you already have 4 years of work experience under your belt.
Yeah,
and you knew what you didn't like.
I knew I was unemployable. I was just I always had ideas of like what I thought this business could be, and it's funny because one of my bosses, my last boss from Home Depot, we're great friends still today, and he's like, when I quit, he's like, I knew you were an entrepreneur. You were a pain in the butt, but you were an entrepreneur, and
nice.
It didn't shock him, you know.
And you're wearing the perfect shirt for it too.
Oh yeah, self-paid. Sometimes.
Yeah.
That's a cool shit, man. I like that.
The months we compare ourselves, right?
Right? We can count them on one hand.
What months we compare ourselves.
Right, yeah.
So cool. So 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You get started, and that's when Sparta was born?
No, so I started in the health and supplement industry, and I had this idea that I wanted to call it rock hard nutrition. So I was basically a trunk hustler. I would go and I would buy the supplements wholesale, and then I would take them to the gym, and I would sling them out of my trunk after workouts to friends and things like that. And so that was my first business. And then when I turned 21, the tech boom was kind of happening with websites and everything like that. And I had a lot of good experiences and success. The company exploded, but I didn't have the funding to keep up with what I was doing constantly. So it was a vicious cycle of the business was exploding. We were making good money. And then, 2007 was kind of the slap in the face of why you should diversify and have multiple streams of income, because we lost everything.
That was your first big failure.
That was my first huge failure, because, being young and thinking I knew everything, it was gas at $4 a gallon, and that was our doomsday, because we had a lot of business in California and Vegas and places like that. And so when gas hit $4 a gallon, we were selling a luxury item of supplements, and first thing to get cut back was that. So we literally lost about 80% of our business over a period of 6 months.
Wow.
And that was a good lesson to have better strategy going forward, not just diversify and have multiple streams of income, but there was things looking back now that I could have been smarter and prepared a little bit better for a recession, but nobody saw it coming.
And another big thing about it is learn to adapt, because, you have a plan and you're a boxer. So like Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face.
Yeah.
And that's, learning to adapt and learning to change. I mean, we've seen throughout our lives, we've seen giant companies fail, and not just little entrepreneurs, the giant companies fail because they have failed to adapt, I mean, look at Blockbuster, look at BlackBerry. I mean, you don't adapt. No matter what, you're going to die.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy to get comfortable, isn't it?
Yes.
Right? It's easy to get comfortable to a level where, especially when we've reached a level that we thought, oh man, this was the max, right? And we sometimes get to a place where we're like, I've succeeded. And you want to kind of rest a little bit.
Yeah.
But then you realize that, and I think this only comes with failure and experience and kind of knocking yourself in the head a few times, where you're like, success is something that you continually pursue.
Yes.
And then you start learning that it's about the journey and the process, not so much about, oh, I've gotten this goal.
Yeah.
Because the victory lasts for 5 minutes. I think the journey and the process and the legacy lasts for a lifetime, and many, many times over generations.
Yeah. Well, and I've always felt like the thing that has driven me, as cliche as it sounds, is it's never been so much like the money. Like, I want to be a millionaire. Like, is that on the goal list for every entrepreneur? Absolutely. But it was, I want to create a legacy, and I want to build something that's talked about long after I'm gone. And now, I have daughters as well. And so I want to show them that anything's possible through the pursuit of hard work and determination with their dreams. But one of the craziest things about entrepreneurship and that early on failure is I was thinking about this last year, and I was like thinking to myself, I've always prided myself on being the hardest worker in the room, but you can be the hardest worker in the room and still lose if you don't have strategy.
Right.
And that was the thing, is it was just, I was going so hard and so fast that I wasn't prepared for the systems. And that's what knocked me down several times, is not being prepared for the systems and having the proper strategy.
To be able to scale.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
And not be the only one working.
Yes.
That's another thing, is like, if you become the only one working hard, then you burn out, and everybody else around you is like, I mean, you're working hard, but what do I do? Right.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to delegate many times.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So you fail, 2007, 2008, you learn some lessons, you pick yourself up, continue. When did Sparta start?
So it was November of 2009. I was at a coffee shop with a friend of mine, Jason. And I was telling him, he's like, what's your plan? What are you going to do next? And I said, well, I want to still be in the sports supplement industry, but I want to have my own private label and the name Spartan Labs. And I'd had it for 10 years, but for whatever reason, I never did anything with it. And he's like, well, how are you going to get it going? And I said, I think what I'm going to do is create a combat sports league and use that as a platform to market it, much like UFC did with Zions at the time. And he's like, what are you going to do? Because boxing's kind of dead here. And it had been. There really hadn't been anything with major promotion or production. I have a good friend of mine, Steve Mestis, who he's promoted for a long time boxing, and he's kind of been the king of boxing. But he has so much on his plate because he promotes, and then he moves his fighters to these huge, undercards on Canelo and like the Dan's and fight cards and things like that. So there really wasn't anything here consistently. And so that's when I came up with the idea to do MMA. And one of the parts of the way I grew up is I wanted to give back into our community, because that's just always been important to me, is I want to give back into the community where I grew up, and other people did a lot of good things for me. So I feel like, I owe my community that. So we were talking, and I'm like, I'm going to do this first MMA event, and I'm going to do a military event, Army versus Marines. And we're going to benefit 4 local wounded veterans, and it's going to be awesome. And so we did the first event down at this local bar, Grizzly Rose, and it exploded. This thing was huge, and it was a sellout. We raised a bunch of money for the 4 vets that night. And, being young and too cocky, I guess you could say. I thought every event was going to be that easy. So we came back and we set up 3 new events that were non-military related, and we lost all our money again. So on the last ride, my wife, we went home with $17, and we had enough money to go back to our little 1-bedroom apartment, and we spent it on pizza. Anybody who knows me, that doesn't shock them, right? So we went back, and she said, well, look, we can't feel sorry for ourselves. So we either need to pick up and dust off, but we need to have a strategy and plan. So we put together this strategy and plan, and the next year in 2010, we had 3 solid events, and then it went to 6 and 9 and 12, and eventually 14 and then 30. And we've done shows in 7 other states now. And then it's just kind of brought us to present day, and it's been a whirlwind. And through that, though, through all the success and all the good things that happened, like we went through a phase where we grew so fast that we outgrew all of our money. So one of the most frustrating things for most entrepreneurs is like, how could my sales be quadruple what they were last year at this time, but I still have no money?
Right.
And I can barely pay my bills because you're paying everybody else, and you're continuing to grow it. So that's probably one of the biggest struggles that I know a lot of entrepreneurs go through, because we literally had no financing, no help. We had to build this thing from the bottom because banks would only do a personal loan of up to $10,000 unsecured because the business was too unstable in their mind. It wasn't a brick and mortar business. Right. They wouldn't know how to track down their assets. Yeah. So by the time we turned the corner, we didn't need them at that point. We just had come up with a better strategy to be safer, and we just kept rolling our cash into one thing, to another, into another, into another.
But one thing you described is it wasn't rosy all the way, right? It was like win, fail, 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 win, fail, 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 win. But then you start getting and growing, I think, a little harder skin.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And I think that's what people don't realize, especially new entrepreneurs, that, look, there's no question about this. You're going to fail.
Yes.
Right? I mean, sorry if you've heard somebody out there telling you that you could succeed, but you're going to fail invariably, and you just have to embrace it. You have to suck it up. You have to pick yourself up and go at it again.
Yes.
And forget about the bad times, learn the lessons. And that's exactly what you did.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And my goodness, some of the setbacks, as you both know as entrepreneurs, are devastating, and they will question your faith. And one of my favorite videos is of Steve Jobs when he says, well, somebody tells him, I want to be an entrepreneur. What's it going to take? Well, it takes unbelievable dedication and trust in the process, right? Yeah. Because you're going to fail and you're going to get knocked down. And that's why 99% of people quit before they go 99 yards and they get on that 1-yard line before they're about to go across, and they quit. They turn back before the blessing can happen. And if you don't absolutely love what you're doing and you don't have incredible passion for it, you're going to quit. Yes. Because I know for me personally, that's what got me through the darkest days of like being like just completely buried in debt, and everybody telling me this into another level.
Are we still live? We good?
Yeah. We got cut off for a second. I don't know what happened. But
no, we're good.
That's Facebook.
Right. That's technology for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and I've seen you go through that with excitement, with joy.
Yep.
I think we all are entitled to a day of feeling sorry for ourselves.
There's been a few moments.
Because we all do that, right?
Yeah.
We all go through the moments where we're like, oh man, am I really built for this?
Yeah.
But I think another thing I've seen in your journey is, I mean, you married an incredible woman, right?
Yeah.
That has been with you through it all.
Yes.
So maybe you can tell us about that, because a lot of entrepreneurs out there need to understand, especially young ones that are about to pick their mate.
Yeah.
Pick well.
Well, I have the story of thinking I was young and hot stuff, and I was never going to get married, and I was never going to have kids.
Yeah.
That whole thing. But, I met my wife at the gym. I was actually delivering supplements to one of my clients, and he's like, hey, I want you to meet my friend. She just moved here from New York. And It ended up being Becca, and he introduced us, and, you know, we became friends and started buying supplements for me. And then we ended up dating and, you know, falling in love. And I got to tell you, like, because I have a lot of friends that are entrepreneurs too, and their wives don't understand the 100-hour work weeks. You know, literally working 100 hours a week for months on end, and then sometimes to not get money, sometimes to owe money. And that's the craziest thing. Like, we have literally come out of an event and lost $25,000 that we worked 8 months on and felt we did everything right, you know, and you're just like, wow. And she's never, you know, I've lost everything we've had multiple times along the journey, all of our savings wiped out. And she's never one time been like, what the hell are you doing? Like, this is a false dream. She's just like, okay, how could we fix it? How could we make this better? And without her, God, this would not exist or be where it is today, present day. And those are things too, like in, you know, being an entrepreneur, I mean, you know, you're married, you know this well. Sometimes we take it out, we project on the people that are closest to us and just trying to help. And, you know, it makes them sometimes feel like, you know, you take them for granted. But I mean, she's the most incredible mother, business partner, and she's been an incredible support system for me. So, I mean, she's very entrepreneurial minded as well. And that's actually what attracted me to her, is because, you know, I met her, she was working a job, and I'm like, you're an entrepreneur, you should just quit and do this crazy thing with me. And she did.
Yeah, that's good.
So,
and she's a hard worker, man.
Yeah.
I've seen her.
Yes.
I've seen her. And she's tough.
Yeah, she's a farm girl, and she's got 3 older brothers. So it's funny, like when somebody's just trying to be a gentleman and help her, she's like, you know, she's like, get off me, I got this. She's like, what the hell's wrong with him? I got this. You know? But I'm like, they're just being gentlemen, babe.
Right.
You know?
Right. No, that's awesome.
So yeah, I've been very blessed with her.
Yeah, no, that's great. So now brings us to present time. Yep. Tell us more about Sparta, about the projects you're working on right now, the businesses you're working on right now, and what does the future hold?
Well, so it's crazy, and we were talking about this at our last lunch meeting when we just reconnected. Entrepreneurship, for the younger entrepreneurs out there that are going to watch this, you might be going down this path, and you'll swear this is your only path, and you're going to kill yourself to get there, and you're going to do whatever it takes. And then all of a sudden, you look to the side of this road, and there is, you know, there's the pot of gold, right? But it's not on you. It's not anywhere where you imagine it's on this other way. And I talk about that because with Sparta Combat League, it was just the fights. It was boxing, kickboxing, and MMA, and it had some great success. But one day I'm sitting in a meeting with Dodge because they were a big sponsor of the event. And the owner of this dealership and multiple dealerships says, hey, can I have the number of your video content design guy? Because he's incredible. I want him to build content for me. Yeah. And on the fly, this is the entrepreneur in me. I'm like, oh, well, we have this other business, and it's called Sparta Media Group, and we build video content for businesses. And
you created the business that second.
That's
right there, man.
So, yeah, I created it that second. And he's like, well, give me a quote. And, you know, he's like, well, what's your budget? You know, I was like, what's your budget? And, you know, he told me, and I about fell out of my chair. So I went home, and I told that guy, I said, we have this whole other business sitting in front of us. Like, the whole way home, my mind wouldn't stop. I'm like, we could be doing this for here, 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 here. And then at that time, Jesse, who you know, he was kind of part of the crew, but he had his own little side production company. So I had to go talk him into basically abandoning that and jumping ship and coming over. And he did. And it was crazy. That business is only not even 2.5 years old. And it already outperforms what Sparta Combat League did, but only because of the platform was there. Right. In front of us. And so,
I mean, you built the foundation.
Yeah, we built a foundation. So we launched Sparta Media Group, and basically this business, we build video content for other businesses. This last Sunday, we just launched SMG Sports Network, which is a streaming network for youth athletics. So we're streaming kids baseball, basketball, football, wrestling tournaments, and their family members are able to watch it from anywhere in the world, essentially, on their phone. And we're running we're running advertising spots in there, and digital banner ads and commercials. And so that business has just been cranking. So we have that going. We still have a supplement company and some stuff that we're talking about there, as you know. And then we actually just got our new location for an auto spa in Fort Collins off College Avenue. So We're doing, we're running about 5 Sparta brands right now. But what's awesome is they all kind of coexist. They have synergy to each other. Yeah. And each person at the helm has a deal of passion for where it is and what's in it. So, 5 companies down, 400 to go. So I'll never be content because I'm not driven by money. I'm driven by passion. Right. And even, when you've had those big successful financial breakthroughs, it's awesome and it's nice and you like to be able to take care of your family. But for me, it's the adrenaline of like the journey, right?
The process.
What could go next? Yes. And I know I'll have more big failures and I know I'll have more big breakthroughs, but because I've learned from my failures, I know that they're really just, they're just learning tools to continue to evolve.
And I'll tell you something, as you fail a lot in the beginning, mm-hmm. you fail a lot less later on.
Yeah.
Because you have acquired that experience, that base of knowledge that helps you steer the ship in a different direction.
Yeah.
And also for me, is you've accumulated a network of people that you trust and that you can go to for advice as well. Because, in the beginning, we're young, we're stubborn, we're cocky, we're like, we think we're invincible. And man, nobody can tell us anything, right? It's like, man, it's my way or the highway. Mm-hmm. And man, sometimes the highway leads to a cliff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, one thing that's really changed my life, just in general, and given me appreciation for everything as we talked, is gratitude. And you hear a lot of people talk about that. But for this whole last year, I start my morning with morning meditation on being and having gratitude and being grateful for just the simple things. And every single morning I write my goals for the whole day. I used to do them every week. And I think you just kind of lose track inside of it. So I write them down every single day. And another new thing that I highly encourage the young entrepreneurs, if they're not doing, is read. Educate yourself, learn. I've been reading a lot of books. I've read more books in the last 12 months than I probably did the last 20 years.
Yeah. And that's a big thing people forget. I mean, it's awesome how you describe, the good habits, and actually realizing that like you guys said, you don't know it all. You can always learn from people. You can always learn from somebody that has done it before you, has made that mistake before you, and never underestimate the value of actually reaching out. Not knowing that as entrepreneurs that happens a lot. It's happened to me. Not reaching out to the people next to me or to the people that I trust and say, listen, I don't know this. I need help. And that's a huge thing that we, as we mature, I think we're all now in our 40s, and as we mature, we're like
just about
not 40 yet,
almost.
Yeah.
I'm mentally 21 though. That's my wife. She always said, "Poor kid." But no, you're absolutely correct in that. And as males, I think that, like, especially in the generation we're brought up in, that like asking for help is a sign of weakness. Yeah. And for me, my father was a Vietnam veteran, and he was a hardworking man, but he was an alcoholic and he was mean as hell. And there was no room for emotions. If you showed emotions, your weakness, and that one thing, I'll give you something to cry about, was a real thing with him. In our military series, the Army versus Marines event we talk about, I actually created that because I wanted to have a closer connection and understanding to my father in the way that he was. Yeah. And it gave me great perspective into, I can't imagine, he was 18 years old and he was, he was in the gates of hell, 18 years old. So think about the different generations, from the greatest generation ever, Korea, Vietnam, to ours, to now. Like, my goodness, there would be no way you would see a 14-year-old volunteering for the war, saying he was 18 years old. But it was crazy for me. Like, just that event alone and all the work, as you've known for years, we've done with veterans, it's given me closure to my relationship with my father. Though I don't have one with him, I still allow for one with my children. He is an amazing grandfather to them. And so I think in a weird way, it's given him closure to be able to do it right, because he knows in his head he didn't do it right, though he'll never come out and say that.
No, and that's amazing that, he has a relationship with your kids.
Yes. Close one.
Because many times families split and that doesn't exist. So man, that's huge credit to you.
Well, it didn't happen overnight. You know, I was very angry, and I didn't have a relationship with my mom or my dad. But as I've gotten, older, Becca's mom is actually she's a psychiatrist for soldiers in Fort Drum. And so she had some good clarity into the situation for my anger towards my parents. And she said, like, forgiveness is for yourself. It's not for anybody else. It doesn't mean they're off the hook for what they did to you. It means that you can have that clear soul. Nobody had ever explained it to me in that way. And I would just I'm not going to repeat the cycle. I'm going to let them have this relationship with my parents. And I don't talk to them. So my sister facilitates it. I meet her somewhere. Yeah. She takes them. But they come home ranting and raving about their grandparents and how much they love them. And it's not my place to tell them how they used to be, because they're not those people anymore. Exactly. You know? And but that's been like a very freeing experience for me. Yeah. And yeah, I love that. So anybody who's going through something personal or emotional, I highly recommend that you find forgiveness, as hard as it is, because it is hard.
Yes.
I mean, that's a huge one. That's a huge one. My brother was telling me about that, and I was one of those guys, man, that you did something to me, and you were done, man. You were done. You were dead to me, and it took really maturing a lot. It took doing all these crazy events. We had an interview recently that, it took me doing extreme things to myself, as like, not sleeping for 3 days and being in the mountains and stuff like that, to realize that I got to reach out to the people that, I had a cousin that he was my best friend throughout my childhood, which he made a mistake when we were 17, man, and for over 20 years. This guy, I would not even consider the fact that to even speak to this person, and it took me reaching out and say, listen, man, the past in the past, and we're best friends now, and it's just, you lose these connections of people that you love, and it's just sometimes for something so petty and so insignificant that you rather get him out of your life. So it's great that you were able to do that, and that's the gift you're giving to your children, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are enjoying your father, and their grandfather.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Initially it was just like I felt like I was robbed of my childhood and all these things. But then as I learned to have more gratitude for the situation and everything too, I'm like, they did the best that they could with what they had. Yeah. You cannot change the past. And that's one of the most devastating things for people to get out of, is like, you're living in the past. My, my sister, who I'm very close with, when she was young, the love of her life killed himself. And she never moved on. She's so strong. She's a cancer survivor. She had to play mom many times in my life. That's why she was my role model. But it's crazy because she just got to a point where a friend brutally told her, like, he's dead, he's gone, and you're like, well, that's really harsh. But then she was like, you're right, I've got to move on with my life, And it's the same thing. It's like all those scars and whatnot as a childhood. Like, I believe that those have turned me into the father that I am, because my kids are my greatest blessing in my life. And I'm so excited because the 7-year-old Rosalind and the 5-year-old Milani, they're very entrepreneurial minded, and they want to do their own little business. And they're talking about YouTube videos, and they do their sketches and drawing, and they're really into it. And so that's exciting for me. I would never push it on them, like if they want to go to school and do all these things, I want to be supportive in that way. But it's exciting for me to see that they're entrepreneurial minded.
Look, they are doing what they're seeing you do. Yeah. At the end of the day, I think, at least for us, seeing my parents in the grind, building their businesses, failing many times, having to restart from zero many times. My dad had cancer when he was in his 40s. Yeah. And he had to sell everything. Insurance wasn't insurance back then, but you didn't have insurance for health. Yes. And he had to sell everything, properties, cars, basically almost back to zero again. Once he got healed, we saw him rebuild. Yeah. And at that time, you don't really understand what you're watching and what you're witnessing. Yes. But at least for us, and I think for your kids, what you realize is that school that you're giving them with your example doesn't have a price. They can't get that anywhere else.
Yeah. It's crazy. We were, have you ever, like, I'm very like scent oriented in memory. You ever smelt something and you're like, oh, this reminds me of my childhood.
Yeah.
You know, when we lived in our old house before we sold it, I was out there and it was kind of a warm day and I can smell like the stench in soda cans.
Yeah.
Right. And it just took me back when, you know, when we first started, we didn't have enough money for the permit needed from the state. So I literally collected cans to get the final amount of dollars to get it, you know? So it's like, it's one of those things where, you know, where there's a will, there's a way. And anybody who's going through extremely hard times now, you just can't give up because they're going to happen. You know, you're going to get punched in your mouth and you gotta get up and dust yourself off and keep moving forward.
Yeah.
You know?
And get creative.
Yes.
You know, because look, sometimes I think we kind of narrow ourselves to like, oh, I'm the CEO of my business.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm the president of my business, which in reality, if you're a business owner and you're getting started or even halfway through or even at the highest level, look, a key person misses the day, gets sick or has to have surgery or whatever, guess what? You got to go do it. You got to go mop the floors if you need to. You got to go do whatever it takes.
Yep.
And I think, you know, being humble enough to accept the fact that even as an example to your employees and your team, being there with them hand in hand and helping them, it's great for them.
Yeah.
Because it helps them realize that you're just another person like themselves.
Yeah. Well, and I've always prided myself on, I wouldn't ask my team to do something I wouldn't do myself.
Right.
You know, hands and knees, like you said, cleaning up the blood.
Yeah.
You know, putting up, in the early years, we used to go rent a U-Haul trailer and we would set everything up with 3 of us. And then as soon as the event was done, we would run home and unpack it and get it back to U-Haul so we didn't get the extra $25 charge on Sunday morning. From that U-Haul right here on the media.
Yeah.
Right down the street. So I think sometimes too, you have to stop and journaling and everything has been amazing for me because you don't realize how far you've come yourself, right? So it's easy to be like, gosh, I'm in this rut or all this thing's happening. But when you journal it and you go back, like I look at where we started in that little 1-bedroom apartment to where everything is now, you're like, you know, it's crazy. Or, you know, I love your story of waking up on that Black Friday and your business had exploded and you know, you never look back. And so
sleeping at the office,
right?
With our kid on the floor.
Absolutely. Being creative is so key. And that's why I say you got type A entrepreneur, type B. Type B, there's nothing wrong with it, but they want to buy a ready-made business and step in and operate. We're type A where we want to go the hard route, you know, the crazy way. Say, hey, if you got this crazy idea that 99% of people don't believe in, you're either going to fail miserably or you're going to succeed beyond your wildest dreams.
Yes.
Yeah, and you know that's a great point that you were talking about. You know, just being able to do it all, but also going back to what you said in the beginning of the interview. You know, the problems with cash flow that we all have with being entrepreneurs and starting a business. That's a mistake. I've seen many entrepreneurs do that. You know, that as soon as they get they start getting some money, you know, they're like, oh yeah, you know, I'm gonna buy a brand new truck and I'm gonna buy a big house and I'm gonna pay myself all kinds of money because I'm the president, like you said, Carlos. You know, I'm the president of the company now. You know, so I'm big time. You know, I'm big time, and they forget to feed their business instead of feeding. And they start just to feed themselves, you know, and the business constantly needs nurturing, and like you've seen, man, and we've all had failures, we've all seen businesses that have grown a ton, and then all of a sudden something happens, sometimes beyond your control, and it's out, you know, and then if you accumulate all this debt, all these bills, all everything, you're gonna end up in trouble more often than not, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's probably the scariest part for a lot of people is the financial burden that this carries. That's one thing where I will say, you know, I was very blessed. I started so young. I didn't have nobody but myself to worry about. And even for the first few years with me and, you know, me and Becca, it was just us and our dogs, you know. It was just like, and we went through the ramen noodle phase, you know, and we talk about that. It was just like, I remember like, it was like we were on like a $25 a week budget for food. So it was like ramen noodles and then the $5 pizza from Blackjack Pizza was like the highlight of our week on Sunday. But I've always like have thought that way, and that was one of the things that I can be proud of that I did right. If I made a bunch of money on something, we literally rolled 90% of it right back into the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, so that we could create more assets instead of liabilities, which I see a lot of, entrepreneurs and young ones make a mistake of, buying these fancy cars or these big houses and burying themselves, and then when the business does come across those either, trying times, or for, now I look forward to some of those. Those are opportunities for guys like us.
Yes.
That have the experience now, to be able to buy low.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I mean, and look, I think you've shared some amazing insights with us. And, if anybody's watching, I would say, guys, share this, because there's a lot of people out there that need to hear successful entrepreneurs like Jeff that have gone through the journey of starting from scratch, right? Failing a bunch of times like we have, and then realizing that, as long as you stay in the grind, you learn your lessons, you ask for advice, you have good team members to rely on, and you reinvest in your business, success is possible.
Yeah.
Success is there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what drives me to ask you questions like, what do you think entrepreneurship has given you?
Oh my God, it's given me the greatest lesson of my life, Carlos. Honestly, it's without entrepreneurship, I wouldn't have the opportunity to be who I am today and to truly express myself. I would love so much someday to see school incorporate more entrepreneurial classes.
Yeah.
I've learned so much more by going to entrepreneurs like yourself and being like, what's your story? What's your story? That's always my first thing. In any meeting I go to now, if I'm in front of the CEO, I want to know their story. And I still just learned so much from it. So entrepreneurship for me has given me a life that I didn't even know was possible, and I want to be able to share this with other people. And so when people ask me for my time, no matter how busy I am, I find a time to go to lunch or coffee or, something for them.
Control of your time, man. Isn't that priceless, right?
It's the most valuable asset in an entrepreneur's life.
And happiness.
Yes.
Because I think, a lot of people say money doesn't buy happiness. And I think they're right in a way. But time buys happiness, in my opinion. When you have time to do the things that you truly like and enjoy, like spending time with your kids, your family, your wife, taking her on trips, or helping other people, and you don't have to answer to anybody else, but you can control that. That brings you joy that you can't explain.
Yeah, I tell people that all the time. As you know, we do like every year we do this annual Sparta Shoes for Kids.
Yeah.
And this was born when I was probably in about 7th grade, and I never had a brand new pair of shoes. And there was a local entrepreneur on the basketball courts, and he always used to, he used to give me crap. He's like, "What's up with your shoes, my boy?" And I was like, "Well, it's what I have." And he owned an ice sculpting business. They would do ice sculptures for restaurants. And so he's like, "What size are you?" And I told him the next day he showed up to the basketball courts with a brand new pair of Jordans.
Oh, wow.
It sounds crazy, but it changed my life. And he said, the only thing I really want you to do is how you're going to pay me back? You're going to do this for somebody else when you get older. So 10 years ago, we launched it, and we went from doing 1 kid to 2 to 3 to 10 to 30 to 40 kids a year. And they get $150, and they can buy any pair of shoes that they want, or they can, spend it on clothes or just whatever. And I'm not a materialistic person by any means, but I believe that a child at least once in their life deserves that opportunity to have whatever they want.
Yeah.
It's that's just important to me. And then, coming up December 17th, we have our 10th annual Sparta Christmas Crusade. And same thing, we take nominated children from the area and we take them shopping, and they get $300 or $200 a piece to buy whatever they want.
Good, that's in December.
Yeah, that's December.
I thought it was this weekend.
Yes,
and I was like, what the heck? He never called me.
I was confused. I was like, he's talking about somebody else maybe. I don't know.
Oh, good. So I didn't miss it.
No, you didn't miss it. So,
when is this?
December 17th.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But I think what's awesome about our program is that if you know somebody in need, they send me an email and I respond personally, and I can say, I just use my gut, and I don't make people go through financial documents and all this BS, because I've seen it firsthand of parents that get turned down for assistance because they make too much money, but they can't even keep the damn lights on. You know? And so in all of our time doing this, I feel like I've only been taken advantage of twice, but that's on them. You know what I mean? They got to live with it. And it's so amazing. And that drives me more. I want to be able to do that I want to do that for thousands of kids, you know, every year. And so that's an incredible thing. And then on Christmas Eve every year, I love my fighters for this. They come out, I buy 300 hot meals, and we go downtown and we hand out handshakes, hugs, and hot meals. And I always tell people, like, you'd be amazed what eye contact and talking to somebody like a human being can do for their confidence and self-esteem. You know, 95% of the people are down there because, look, they've made some bad choices. There's drugs, mental issues, everything like that. But there's 5% of people down there that have just completely just gotten a tough break, and they need a little bit of help. And you know, it's just crazy. And one of the stories before we go, I've shared with you. I have a brother, and my brother, I want to say, is 51, but growing up, he was just always in trouble. He went to prison for 21 years, okay? He got out 8 years ago, and last May he graduated with a degree, a 4-year degree in electrical engineering, and he at age 50. And so he works for a company now that knows his past, and he's exploding in his career. And, you know, it just, I like that. We're not very close, but I like that story because I'm like, what an incredible story. Here's a guy that got roped into, you know, he was in gangs and drugs and all these things that turned around his life at age 50. And it's just it's never too late. It's never too early, for sure. The earlier, the better, but it's never too late.
You know, we say this over and over. I mean, this seems to be a recurring thing in our interviews. You know, it's you know, reaching out and lifting others. It's an amazing thing that by doing that, you lift yourself. You know, we raise by lifting others. And you know, just people think that giving back is you know, spending a ton of money and you know, and actually buying people things. And you know, when we can do that as entrepreneurs and as companies, awesome. But like you said, just having eye contact, you know, saying hello, you know, seeing how you're doing, helping somebody cross the street. You never know what impact you will do in that person, and you never know what they're going through. And sometimes that's all it takes to change their life or to improve their situation. And just saying hello, you know, a heartfelt hello, a heartfelt smile, it can change somebody's life, you know?
It's so true. I mean, having somebody believe in you is like one of the most incredible feelings in the world. You have to believe in yourself, you know, first and foremost. But when you get somebody that really believes in what you're doing, it's a feeling I can't even describe. You know, it's just like, wow. It's, you know, with Becca, she's like, I believe in your dreams, no matter what they are, we're going to make them happen. And you know I mean, we got a team full of those people now. Yeah. So that's really, it's amazing. But you're so right. The eye contact, and, you know, we're in a world of technology where everything's like a text message, and so many things can be misconstrued that way. I love good old-fashioned lunch meetings and eye contact and phone calls. And you got to text a lot because that's the world that we're in, especially as CEOs, you're busy, you know. But when you have a moment, if there's a disagreement of any sort or not, a phone call or otherwise it's like, I can't believe you said this to me. You know?
It's like, oh, I didn't mean it that way. Oh, really? Oh, and then a year went by, and I thought that you did.
Yeah.
Right? No, I read somewhere that it's just it. You know, you have, it's not what you say, you know, it's what you do. And taking that little bit of time, and people ask sometimes, you know, what do you do? Not because they want to know what you do, but because they want to know what level of respect they want to give you, you know, and that's just outrageous to me that people do that, because it just, everybody deserves the same respect. Everybody deserves you reaching out, and like you said, man, it's amazing that what you're doing. If somebody just reaches out, man, can we go out for some coffee or whatever, and just taking the time to just listen to other human beings and to be able to give them some sort of value by giving them advice, or just you know, being able to help them with their situation, as little or as big as can be, it can make a huge difference.
Oh, it's so true. And the other thing for young entrepreneurs out there is like, you cannot compare your journey to anybody else's because it's different. It's not that's not what it is. I mean, because it's easy. You know, when I was coming up, I had another entrepreneur buddy who he got into real estate and like that became a millionaire, you know, because he made some right strategic moves. The biggest thing you can't ever just be like, why am I not there yet? And that's where the problem comes in. If people that are pursuing money instead of passion, it's never going to work out. It will never be long-term for them, ever.
So fall in love with the journey.
Yes.
I think that's, you know, one of the biggest things that I've taken out with you, because at some point in time, you did that.
Yeah. I mean, even as, you know how it is. Like when we've had those moments, you're like, what did I do? Or like, you know, this is like, should I just get a job? I mean, I've had that thought in my head at least, I'd say 5 to 7 times in a serious conversation with myself over the time. But, you know, 45 minutes, an hour, I get right out of it. And, you know, if you knew my wife, you'll laugh when you hear this. One time I was just so pissed. She came down. She's like, are you gonna feel sorry for yourself? Or are you going to sack up and are we going to fix this? You know, and she's just very strong personality like that. Dude, and I'm like, first I was pissed and then I'm like, you're right, you know? But man, there's something, it's like you said, the time, like, you know, being able to like say, you know what, I'm going to pick up my daughters from school, or we're going to go to Waterworld today, or, you know, we're going to go here or there. That's priceless.
No, the beauty of being able to put things in pause in your business and say, guys, I have today a recital with my daughter.
Yes.
And just not answer your phone.
Yeah.
Or not answer to somebody that is like, hey, you have to turn in this on Friday. It's like, no, I don't. Right.
I go into serious anxiety over my phone though, and it's going off, you know, and you're like, well, because I mean, that's how we started the business. And then you're like, but yeah, I mean, you got to be able to step away from it. And that's the unique situation with me and Becca is like neither one of us know how to step away. But we both make incredible sacrifices so that the girls don't suffer from it at all. You know, sometimes it means not sleeping, but it's just been amazing. I love it, you know. And I was in a meeting the other day and the guy was just like, I got to say, I love your energy. And it's just like your energy introduces yourself before you ever say a word, right? But we're pursuing our dreams. As hard as it is, like to sit here and be, you know, my stress today was, you know, going from the gym to a meeting to try to make it here in time. And I'm like, I'm blessed, you know, and have people like you in my life, like that, you know, have had an outrageous amount of success as well. And you've been a great role model for me in many ways as well. So it's been awesome.
No, I gotta tell you, man, it's been an awesome interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You've inspired me more than I could ever give you back, to be honest with you. I've watched your journey. I've seen you in all facets, really, because I've seen you never give up, number one. Be passionate about what you do. There's not one time that I've seen you feel sorry for yourself. That's happening in private, which is great. But it's good to hear it because we all go through it, right? And be a light in the lives of others. And I think, you know, as entrepreneurs and as entrepreneur brothers, really, and that's the name of our channel in Spanish, right? I just couldn't buy the domain in English, but as soon as we make our first $50,000, we'll buy the entrepreneurbrothers.com domain.
That's awesome.
And we're coming for you guys.
But you know, the reason that we started that name in Spanish is because first it was Ricardo and I, but then I started thinking, Entrepreneur Brothers means we're all entrepreneurs. We're brothers. Because we have the same common interest, the same passion, eventually develops into something more. And I see all the very successful entrepreneurs. It's not about them anymore.
No.
They start giving, right? They start handing out. They start, you know, wanting to improve the world, which I think entrepreneurship, just like you said, if we have a chance in our lifetime, and I hope we do, to incorporate that more into schools, to volunteer some of our time to go talk to kids and say, look, there's another way, right? I know that they're getting you ready to go interview for your next job, but hey, why don't we show you how to start a business? Right? Whatever you're passionate about can be your business. Whatever you're good at can be your business. And it can be developed into something that you do full time if you want to, or that you do on the side so that you're never in need.
Yeah.
And you can meet your needs and your wants even.
Yeah.
And have diversity of income.
Yes.
And not be tied to anybody else that's telling you to punch a clock every day.
Yeah. I mean, that's really a big motivator for me as well is, you know, I remember, you know, when 9/11 happened and that was all happening and all the people from MCI WorldCom, I mean, some of these people thought they were millionaires in their stock options and they're still working today because there was nothing left. So at the end of the day, if I have nothing, I want that to be my responsibility. If my family has everything, I want that to be my responsibility as well, you know, because it's just, not everybody's an entrepreneur and that's okay.
Yeah.
That was like one of the faults I had is like being young. I thought everybody could be an entrepreneur, right? Or everybody wanted. And so I see the full potential of somebody, sometimes that even they don't. And sometimes that fails with them being employees or team members because they don't have the same drive or passion, or they don't see and believe in themselves the way that I do. And I've just always had like the highest amount of self-belief. I don't believe anything's impossible,
right?
You know, because it's true. It's like, it's always impossible until it's done. You know, they talked about how impossible the 4-minute mile was. Mm-hmm. And then when he did it, since that point, then 26 people did it following the next 12 months, 5 of them or 4 of them being high school students.
Yeah.
Right. So there is no dream too crazy, it's possible.
Yes.
You know,
I mean, that dude just did a marathon in less than an hour.
Yeah.
Less than 2 hours. 2 hours.
Less than 2 hours? Okay. Less than 2 hours.
Yeah. I mean, you'd find me dead on the side of the road after about 3/4 of a mile. So
oh yeah, man, they're amazing, man. They're amazing.
Brother, thank you so much for your time today, man. It's been awesome. Thank you so much.
It was very nice to meet you, brother.
It's not going to be the last time.
No, we got a lot of stuff to do.
It again.
Yes.
And it's, we have a lot of people to inspire out there. And I think stories like this is really something that we all must watch. Number one, to give us perspective, right? And to give us a little bit of extra knowledge and those things that, we could hear it 100 times.
Yes.
There's many messages, I think, as entrepreneurs, we've heard 100 times. Mm-hmm. But the one time that you hear it from somebody you relate to, that's when it clicks. Yeah. It hits home and you're like, oh, shoot, I should have been doing this 3 years ago. Yeah. Right? And then you start putting it in practice and you realize, oh, my results are changing because finally I was able to receive the message and go apply. Well, one of the problems that I see with like business coaches and online coaches and all these things, is that they want to talk about how they became a millionaire and everything. They very rarely share the realistic part of the struggles and the struggles of being able to raise capital and get investors and, and everything like that. And so I think that's been one of the best things about my story is that people have seen, literally we did this with no support other than just being incredibly creative. And that's just, if there's a will, there's a way. There is 1,000 different ways to skin a cat. Yeah. So sure. Awesome, brother. Thanks so much. I appreciate the opportunity. It's been awesome.
Thanks, man. Take it easy, brother. See you in person soon.